Your brain is literally that's not what I'm trying to say. Your brain is equating growth with danger. Yep. So basically, when you start a new task, your brain does not see success. It sees risk. And risk to your brain is equivalent to you jumping off of something at a certain height. It is your brain think you about to. Your brain is dramatic. So what does that mean? That means that your survival brain, right? This is your limbic system. It is scanning for anything that feels unfamiliar, challenging, emotionally risky, identity threatening, stuff like that. So your brain will actually respond with not now, I'll do it later, let's do it later, let me first scroll to get some inspiration, I'm not going to post today, I don't have nothing, I'll clean the house when I get to cleaning the house. It will make you literally just delay. Not because you are lazy, but because your brain is trying to keep you in the familiar because it wants to it wants to stick to the devil that it knows. It is not trying to get you to success. I hope that makes sense. Number 2 is procrastination is a dopamine problem, not a discipline problem. This is very important. What does this mean? Your brain loves anything that is an easy dopamine hit. Things like scrolling, snacking, talking about anything, talking about your dreams versus actually doing the things that you need to do to get to your, to achieve your dreams or goals. Fantasizing instead of executing, stuff like that. Hard task equals delayed dopamine. Your brain prefers instant dopamine hits instead of long-term dopamine hits. So it craves instant gratification over long-term, stability or longevity. So it chooses comfort over completion. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Number 3 is your brain is actually, not your brain. Your prefrontal cortex is actually being hijacked. What is in my eye? So the prefrontal cortex is responsible for planning, organizing, decision-making, long-term strategy, and long-term goals, right? So when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel scared, when you feel unprepared, when you don't feel confident, when you feel perfectionistic, right? Your amygdala literally hijacks your prefrontal cortex. This is where, like I just said, your planning, your organizing, your decision making, your long-term strategy. Basically, you're not even in control no more. You ever been hijacking is basically taking control of a moving vehicle or something like that. You get what I'm trying to say. So, yeah. So I guess in a more plain tone, I'm basically saying that this means your emotional brain overrides your logical one. That is why you know what to do, but you can't make yourself do it. I really hope this is making sense. 4 is trauma makes starting feel threatening. So depending on your trauma, you may look at starting something new as threatening. So if you grew up with criticism, chaos, comparison, pressure, fear, failure, unpredictable environments, like I grew up in foster care, your nervous system associates that with doing new things, and it also equates it to potential pain. So doing new things equals potential pain to your brain. Yeah. Your brain thinks success equals danger. It thinks that visibility equals risk. It thinks that trying equals possible embarrassment. It thinks that finishing equals responsibility. All the things that don't feel like doing. Because it's new, it seems hard. It's going to equate it to being hard. That kind of thing. So your procrastination is not a character flaw. It is a trauma response dressed up as bad time management. Yeah, it is your trauma dressed up as bad time management. That's a bar. I like that. Number 5 is your brain will literally avoid tasks that threaten your identity, the current one that you're in. this gonna be my favorite. So example, most people want to be millionaires. So say you say you want to be a millionaire, right? But your identity still says I'm broke. It is still tied to the poverty mindset, the poverty perspective, the poverty environment. That's what it's tied to. So your brain will delay anything that challenges who you believe that you are. You can believe you want to be a millionaire, but if you are still tied to the poverty mindset, you will talk yourself down out of it, right? You can say, I want to show up online, but your identity still says, people will judge me. You still worried about what people think, right? Identity conflicts create cognitive dissonance. So your brain will avoid anything that makes you feel like you are choosing between your old self and a future self. Number 6 is perfectionism equals procrastination and Gucci boots. Most of y'all think that perfectionism you are confusing perfectionism with high standards. Oh Lord, y'all about to beat me up. Perfectionism is not high standards. It is fear of criticism and fear of exposure. So your brain is literally telling you, like, if I'm not perfect, then we not safe. So if this don't look the way that I want it to look and how I want it to look, it's not going to operate the way I want it to operate and how I want it to operate. I believe that perfectionists are, they have trust issues. Not just with themselves, but even with the outside world. So you wait, you build. You never promote. You never make yourself visible. You are doing all of this stuff instead of actually producing something. Like putting it out there. Yeah. You are not aiming for excellence. Stop telling yourself that. You are hiding behind it. If you tell me that you're a perfectionist, I will tell you that you're scared. So no, you are not procrastinating because you are lazy, right? Technically, you procrastinate because your brain is wired for survival and it is not wired for success. You have to rewire your nervous system to be okay with being uncomfortable so that you can get to the success and the lifestyle that you want to live. Period, point blank. Rewiring can change. Your wiring, Jesus, that's not what I meant. Your wiring can change. Neuroplasticity basically says that nobody is stuck being the same person, right? Neuroscience literally proves that you are not stuck being the same person. People are not stuck in their ways. They are choosing to be that way. So if you are a procrastinator, you are actively every single winking moment, you are choosing to be a procrastinator. You can reprogram your brain. You can retrain your nervous system. You can rebuild an entire and new identity if you wanted to. You just have to start, even if it's small. No matter how tiny it is, just start. Stop negotiating with yourself because you know you ain't gonna win. You and I both know you ain't gonna win. Start activating what you have. Your future self is built within the next 5 minutes. Your future self can be built within the next 5 minutes. If you want to.
You procrastinate not because, I just push things back on, that's where I get things done. What they said, you procrastinate because you're motivated by consequences. And I was like, I am motivated by consequences. Because if nothing's going to happen to me tomorrow if I'm not doing what I said I was going to do today, then I could do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes tomorrow. And time ain't real. We supposed to just do it now. And this year, my word was discipline. And so far...
Y'all know I go to Columbia University and I just had class. My professor said this thing that really stuck out to me. She said, procrastination is not a time management problem. It's an emotional regulation problem. Which means you're procrastinating because you're not regulating your emotions. Like, you don't want to get it done because you think you're going to fail. You're putting failure in your mind before you even begin a task. That's why you're procrastinating. It's not because you're bad at time management skills or you just don't know what to do. It's just because the fear of failure is holding you back, or the fear of not succeeding in that specific task is holding you back. And that resonated with me because that's literally what it is. Like, I notice if I'm ever like not wanting to do something or like anxious about it, it's because I'm literally worried that I won't do it correctly, or I won't do it in a way that my professor will want it done, or a company will want it done.
You're not procrastinating because you're lazy. You're procrastinating because you're avoidant. Because think about the things that you procrastinate. And my ADHD girlies, I hope you guys are listening closely. There's not a feeling of, oh, I really don't want to do that thing. You desperately want to do the thing. You desperately want the thing to be done. That is the opposite of laziness, because it's not a choice. If it was up to you, you would be doing that thing and it would be completed yesterday, months ago, years ago. You're avoiding the feelings you associate with that task. So if you're a perfectionist like me with my paintings, I avoid trying to touch the piece because I think I'm gonna mess up the piece. And so if I get to a stopping point, it takes me days, a week, 2 weeks to return because I'm so scared to mess up that next step. Or you're avoiding the feelings of shame that you've accumulated over time from having not done that task for so long. So if you told yourself you were going to email that person back a week ago, well, now it's a week later and you're feeling embarrassed that it's taken you a week to get back to them. And because you feel embarrassed, doing that thing makes you feel shame. So what do? You do everything to take your mind off of that feeling of shame. You scroll, you doom scroll on the internet. You distract yourself in every way possible, and it doesn't work. Because in the back of your head, you're still draining your energy resources overthinking those horrible feelings. Avoiding our feelings does not allow us to process them. In an ideal world, when you know how to emotionally regulate, your feelings wash over you like a wave. And then again, the lake or the ocean or whatever is calm again. It's calm waters once that feeling washes over you. But you're terrified of those feelings. And so you push it away, you push it away, you push it away, more time passes, and it's a vicious cycle, and you end up feeling worse and worse and worse. Finally, something gives, the task ends up taking 5 seconds, and you feel like an idiot because it took you 2 years. So if you've been following me up until this point, I want to make sure you interact 3 times to make sure you see me on your For You page again, and let's jump into how you can fix this. You're thinking of this task as this insurmountable mountain. So for me, when I'm thinking about spending time on my piece, I'm not thinking about each step. I'm thinking about the final product. I'm worried about, is it going to look like the reference picture? Is it going to be as powerful of a piece as I think my other pieces were that I was really proud of? Is it going to live up to my own expectations? And then along with those feelings, there's this crippling sense of dread where I'm like, I don't want to mess this up. And it feels like every brushstroke is absolutely permanent and unchangeable. But if we break that down, that's not true. I even fundamentally as an artist don't think there are mistakes in art. I think each stroke happens for a reason. But my perfectionism, procrastination, and anxiety do not think the same way. So this is how I get them on board. I make the task so unbelievably small, it's almost laughable. So small that the expectation is so low that it's impossible for me to mess it up. I even tell myself to try and mess it up. My goal is to go to my studio and try to mess up the piece. I'll literally say to myself, Abby, go in there and do your worst and put a timer on it. So today, I literally didn't sleep all of last night. I was doing all this other work throughout the morning, and throughout the afternoon, I had meetings. But my dad reminded me, Abby, you need to paint today. Make sure you paint just 30 minutes. And even 30 minutes felt like too long because I had been waiting all day to lie down and I had forgotten that I needed to be doing this. So I set a timer for 30 minutes and I didn't put it in my head that I had to start immediately on the piece. I spent a bunch of time just setting up the studio, setting up the paint, sitting there, tired, looking at it. I went to the bathroom, sat on the toilet for a good 15 minutes. Like I'd already peed, I was just sitting there. I was running down the clock. But even though I wasn't actually painting, I was still showing myself that I was willing to show up for myself. Because hey, it's not do your best when you're a perfectionist, it's do your worst. So I came in here and I did my worst for 22 of the 30 minutes. And then I checked that timer and saw there were only 8 minutes on the clock. And I thought to myself, I have it in me to at least lay down paint for 8 minutes. So I finally kicked into gear and laid down some paint strokes because the expectation at that point was so low. And you don't have to start with 30-minute expectations. You can start with 5 minutes, 2 minutes. I really recommend the book Atomic Habits if you haven't read it. Once there were 8 minutes on the clock, I was like, I can do 8 minutes. Come on, it's 8 minutes. And my goal is to do my worst. So if I fuck it up in 8 minutes, I fuck it up. I'll try and fix it tomorrow. But what happened after those 8 minutes? My timer went off and I wanted to keep going. My paint ran out on the palette
and I refilled the paint, knowing that, hey, I only have to do 8 minutes of this. Why am I still doing this? The iPad I was using to look at as a reference photo died. And so what did I do? I pulled out my printed reference photo and I used that instead. So all of a sudden, I had done my 30-minute obligation, and the expectation was to do my absolute worst, right? To do something. And after 22 minutes of time wasting, I really only had to do 8 minutes of painting. But because I showed myself I could show up for myself, I ended up spending a good extra hour in this studio painting. You can't pull motivation out of your ass. Inspired action inspires